I still remember the exact moment that changed my life forever. It wasn't at my brother's funeral, though losing Peter shattered a piece of my heart I thought would never heal. No, it was 3 days after we buried him, when I sat on a bench in Cheeseman Park with half a loaf of sourdough bread wrapped in a napkin. The autumn leaves were falling around me, dancing in the gentle Denver breeze, each one a reminder of how quickly life can slip away. I was 47, a widow for 8 years, and now without the only other person who'd known me my entire life. Peter had been my rock, my confidant, my history keeper. He never married, never had children of his own, but he loved my son Liam as if he were his own flesh and blood. "You're staring at nothing again, Mom," Liam had said that morning. Before leaving for work, his voice tinged with that familiar impatience. At 28, my son had grown into someone I barely recognized, ambitious, sharp, increasingly distant. His tailored suit and carefully styled hair seemed to belong to a stranger, not the freckle-faced boy who once collected bugs in jars and begged Peter to take him fishing. "I'm fine," I'd assured him, the lie bitter on my tongue. Just tired. But I wasn't fine. That's why I ended up on that park bench, clutching bread I couldn't eat, watching strangers live their ordinary lives while mine had fallen apart. That's when I saw him, the old man with trembling hands and vacant blue eyes. He shuffled past me, his weathered coat hanging from bony shoulders, his white beard unkempt. Something about his solitude mirrored my own, and without thinking I tore the loaf in half. "Would you like some?" I asked, extending my hand. He stopped, studying me with eyes that suddenly didn't seem vacant at all, but rather filled with an unexpected clarity. "Thank you kindly," he said, his voice stronger than his appearance suggested. He accepted the bread with weathered fingers, careful not to touch mine. Acts of kindness are rare these days, especially from strangers. "It's just bread," I said, attempting a smile. "No," he replied. "It's more than that. It's seeing someone when the rest of the world has made them invisible." I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "I'm Linda," I offered, not knowing why I wanted this strange man to know my name. "I know who you are, Linda Harrison," he said, quietly. "I've been looking for you." My body tensed. I started to rise from the bench, fear prickling along my spine. "Please," he said, "don't be afraid. My name is Howard Blackwell. I need to give you something." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a yellowed envelope, slightly wrinkled at the corners. My full name was written across it in a careful, steady hand. "What is this?" I asked, not reaching for it. "It's about your son," Howard said, "and your brother, Peter." My fingers trembled as I took the envelope. "How do you know my brother's name?" "Read it in private," he said, ignoring my question. "When you're ready to know more, I'll be here. Same bench, same time tomorrow." Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving half the bread untouched on the bench between us. That night, after Liam had gone out with friends from his firm, I sat at my kitchen table, the envelope resting before me like a ticking bomb. Outside, rain began to fall, drumming against the windows of the small house Peter had helped me buy after Richard died. I thought about calling Liam, asking him to come home, but something stopped me, a feeling I couldn't name, or perhaps didn't want to. With one deep breath, I opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. "Dear Linda, you don't know me, but I've been watching your family for some time. What I'm about to tell you will cause you pain, and for that, I'm sorry. But truth, even painful truth, is better than comfortable lies. Your son, Liam, along with his boss, Mark Caldwell, manipulated your brother Peter during his recent health scare. They convinced him to sign over power of attorney while he was heavily medicated and confused. Once they had that control, they systematically transferred his assets, which were substantial, into accounts they control. I have proof of this. Bank transfers, document copies, emails. Peter wasn't a poor man, as you may have believed. He had investments worth over $2 million and property in Boulder that Liam and Caldwell have already liquidated. What's worse, Caldwell has no intention of honoring his promises to your son. He's already begun setting Liam up to take the fall if this ever comes to light. I'm giving you this information because I've spent years tracking Caldwell's schemes, and I can't stand by while another family is destroyed. Your brother deserved better, and you deserve to know what your son has done. If you want evidence, meet me again. If not, burn this letter and forget we ever met. The choice is yours. H.B. The paper slipped from my fingers. My legs gave out and I sank to the kitchen floor, bile rising in my throat. It couldn't be true, not Liam, not my son. But even as denial screamed through my mind, memories began to surface. Liam's sudden interest in Peter's finances after his hospitalization, the private meetings he'd insisted on having with Peter, the way he'd discouraged me from visiting certain days, claiming Peter needed rest. "Mum," Liam's voice startled me. I hadn't heard him come in. He stood in the doorway, his eyes moving from my face to the letter on the floor. "What's wrong? What's that?" I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, searching his face for the little boy I'd raised, the child who'd cried when he accidentally stepped on an ant, the teenager who'd spent his own savings to buy Peter a birthday gift. Instead, I saw a stranger, composed, calculating, his eyes darting to the letter and back to me. "It's nothing," I lied, reaching for the paper with trembling fingers. "Just some old correspondence of Peter's." "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, moving toward me. "Let me help you up." As his hand touched mine, I flinched involuntarily. Something dark flashed across his face. Not concern, not confusion, but something colder, something that made my heart crack in two. "I'm fine," I said, the same lie I'd told that morning. "Just overtired. Grief does strange things." He nodded, but his eyes never left the letter I now clutched against my chest. "You should get some rest, Mom," he said finally. "Things will look better in the morning." But as I lay in bed that night, listening to Liam moving around his old bedroom down the hall, I knew nothing would ever look better again, because either my son was a thief who had betrayed his uncle and me, or someone was playing a cruel game with a grieving woman. Either way, tomorrow I would return to that bench. Tomorrow I would find out the truth, even if it destroyed me. Morning arrived with cruel efficiency, sunlight streaming through curtains I'd forgotten to close. My eyes burned from a night without sleep, my mind racing with possibilities, each worse than the last. I'd spent hours trying to recall every detail about Peter's finances. He'd lived simply in the same modest house our parents had left him. He drove a 10-year-old Honda. His clothes came from department stores, never designer labels. Nothing about his lifestyle suggested wealth. But then, Peter had always been private. After our mother's long illness drained their savings, he'd become almost paranoid about money. "Never let people know. What you have," he'd say. "It changes how they see you." Had he been hiding his success all these years? And if so, from whom? From me. I showered and dressed mechanically, listening for sounds of Liam. His bedroom door remained closed when I passed it. A note on the kitchen counter explained his absence. "Early meeting with Caldwell, don't wait up." His handwriting looked hurried, the pressure of the pen leaving deep impressions on the paper. Mark Caldwell, the name from the letter. I'd met him once at a firm party, tall, silver-haired, with the practiced charm of a man accustomed to getting his way. Liam spoke of him with reverence, describing him as brilliant and visionary. I'd been pleased my son had found a mentor, someone to guide his career in real estate finance. Now that memory turned sour in my stomach. I drove to Peter's house, a place I'd visited countless times but suddenly felt like foreign territory. The key he'd given me years ago still worked. Inside, everything remained untouched since his death. Dishes in the sink, mail piled on the counter, his reading glasses folded on the coffee table beside a half-finished novel. I moved through the rooms like a detective searching for clues. In his home office I found a laptop, password protected. Files in the cabinets revealed nothing unusual. Utility bills, house maintenance records, medical documents. Then, in the bottom drawer of his desk, I discovered a leather portfolio. Inside were investment statements, property deeds, insurance policies, all showing assets far beyond what I'd imagined. Peter had been living on a fraction of his means, investing the rest with remarkable success. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. The most recent statements were dated 3 months ago, before his hospitalization. Nothing since. I reached for the phone, intending to call the investment firm listed on the statements, when I noticed the voicemail light blinking. 16 messages. I pressed play. Most were condolences from colleagues and distant relatives. Then Peter's own voice filled the room. "Linda, it's me. I need to talk to you about something important. It's about Liam. He brought this financial advisor to see me, and something doesn't feel right. The questions they were asking, call me back when you can." The timestamp was 3 weeks before his death. I checked my phone, scrolling through missed calls. There it was, Peter's number. A date I remembered clearly. I'd been overwhelmed with end-of-year paperwork at the school where I worked as a secretary. I'd seen his call but decided to call back later. Later never came. Tears blurred my vision as guilt crashed over me. If I'd answered, if I'd called back, could I have prevented whatever happened? The next message. Played automatically. Linda, I've been trying to reach you. I signed some papers for Liam yesterday. I was still pretty groggy from the new medication, and now I'm worried. They said it was just to help manage things if I can't, but I don't know. I'm going to talk to my own lawyer tomorrow. If anything happens to me, tell Liam I forgive him, but I hope he doesn't forget what family means. The message ended abruptly. My brother's voice, confused, concerned, yet still offering forgiveness, broke something inside me. I slumped into Peter's chair, sobbing until my chest ached. When I finally composed myself, I copied all the documents I could find, took photos of the statements, and pocketed a USB drive from Peter's desk. Then I carefully returned everything to its place. If Liam came here looking, I didn't want him to know I'd been investigating. By the time I reached Cheeseman Park, it was nearly 4 o'clock. Howard was already there, sitting on our bench, feeding pigeons with crumbs from a paper bag. He looked just as disheveled as yesterday, but I saw him differently now. Not as a homeless stranger, but as the bearer of a truth I couldn't ignore. "You came," he said, simply not looking up from the birds. "I went to Peter's house," I said, sitting beside him. "I found statements, heard messages. I need to know everything." Howard nodded, continuing to scatter crumbs. "Mark Caldwell has been running sophisticated financial schemes for years. He finds wealthy individuals with few connections, creates legal mechanisms to access their assets, then drains them. Dry. And Liam, how is he involved? Your son joined Caldwell's firm 2 years ago, showed promise, ambition. Caldwell grooms young associates, tests their moral boundaries with small compromises, then gradually pulls them deeper. Liam passed all his tests." "What tests?" I asked, though I feared the answer. "First, falsifying application documents for clients who wouldn't qualify for loans. Then manipulating appraisals, finally identifying potential targets, people with assets and vulnerabilities." "Like Peter," I whispered. Howard nodded. "Liam mentioned his uncle's health issues during a meeting. Caldwell saw an opportunity. They moved quickly after Peter's hospitalization. Power of attorney, new account designations, property transfers, all while he was medicated, confused. But why would Liam do this? We weren't wealthy, but we were never desperate. I raised him better than this." Howard's eyes, pale blue and weathered, finally met mine. "Caldwell promised him partnership, 7 figures, a corner office, the things young men think matter." I thought of Liam's new car, designer clothes, the vacation he'd planned to the Maldives, all while I'd been working overtime to afford a modest retirement. "You said Caldwell is setting Liam up. How?" "The paperwork. Every document has Liam's fingerprints, his signatures as witness. Caldwell kept himself at arm's length. If investigators come looking, your son takes the fall." "And how do you know all this?" I asked, sudden suspicion cutting through my grief. Howard's expression softened. "I was a private investigator, good at my job until I wasn't. Made mistakes, lost my license. But I kept tabs on Caldwell after he ruined a client of mine. Been watching him for years." He paused. "I have contacts at his firm, people who owe me favors. That's how I got these." He handed me a manila envelope. Inside were emails, bank transfers, copies of the power of attorney document with Liam's signature as witness. Most damning was an email from Liam to Caldwell. "Uncle signed everything. He doesn't suspect anything. Assets should clear by Friday." My stomach lurched. There was no more room for denial. "What do I do now?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "That depends," Howard said. "What matters most to you? Justice for your brother or protecting your son?" The question hung between us as the afternoon light began to fade. In the distance I could see the Denver skyline, buildings gleaming in the setting sun. Somewhere in one of those towers, my son and Mark Caldwell were probably celebrating their success, unaware that their carefully constructed scheme was beginning to unravel. "I need time to think," I said finally. Howard nodded. "Time is something Liam doesn't have much of. Caldwell has already started transferring assets offshore, cutting your son out. When he's done, he'll make an anonymous tip to the authorities." "How long?" "Days, maybe a week." I stood, clutching the envelope to my chest. "I'll meet you here tomorrow. Same time." As I walked away, Howard called after me, "Linda, whatever you decide, remember, your brother knew," and his last words were of forgiveness. But as I drove home, Peter's message echoing in my mind, I wondered if I possessed the same capacity for mercy, because in that moment, all I felt was a mother's rage, not just at Caldwell, but at the son I'd raised, who had become someone I no longer recognized. I barely slept that night. When I closed my eyes, I saw Peter's face, not as he was in his final days, pale and drawn against hospital sheets, but as he had been in life, laughing, eyes crinkling at the corners, a man who found joy in simple things. "What would you do, Pete?" I whispered to the darkness. "What would you have me do?" By morning I had no answers, only a hollow ache where certainty should be. I dressed carefully, applying makeup to hide the shadows beneath my eyes. Liam was in the kitchen when I came downstairs, brewing coffee in the machine Peter had given us last Christmas. "You're up early," he said, sliding a mug toward me. "Feeling better?" I accepted the coffee, studying him over the rim. His face betrayed nothing, no guilt, no fear, just the polite concern of a son for his mother. "I'm going through Peter's things today," I said, watching his reaction. "There's a lot to sort out." Something flickered in his eyes, alarm quickly masked. "I can help if you want. I could take the afternoon off." "That's sweet of you, but I'd rather do it alone." I sipped my coffee. "Grief is a private thing." He nodded, seemingly relieved. "Well, if you change your mind—" "Liam," I interrupted, "was Peter wealthy? Did he ever mention investments, property, anything like that to you?" The question hung in the air between us. Liam's fingers tightened imperceptibly around his mug. "Uncle Pete? No way," he laughed, but it sounded forced. "He lived like a monk." "Why do you ask?" "Just something someone said at the funeral, that he was sitting on a gold mine." I thought it was strange. "People say weird things at funerals," Liam shrugged. "They probably meant his baseball card collection or something." "Probably," I agreed, watching him check his watch. "I should get going, big meeting with Caldwell today." He hesitated, then added, "Actually, I've been meaning to tell you. I might be getting a promotion soon. Partner track." "That's wonderful," I said, the words like ashes in my mouth. "You've worked hard." He kissed my cheek, a gesture so normal, so familiar, and headed for the door. "Don't work too hard today, Mom. Love you." "Love you too," I replied automatically, wondering if he could hear the lie. After he left, I drove to the bank where Peter had his checking account. The manager recognized me. We'd gone to high school together. "Linda, I'm so sorry about Peter," Tom said, ushering me into his office. "He was a good man." "Thank you, Tom. I'm trying to get his affairs in order, but I'm a bit confused about his accounts." Tom frowned. "Well, I can help with what he had here, but that wasn't much toward the end. Just his checking account for household expenses." "What do you mean, toward the end?" He shifted uncomfortably. "About a month ago, he came in with his nephew, your son, right, and transferred most of his savings elsewhere. Said he was consolidating accounts." My heart sank. "Did he seem himself when he did this?" Tom's hesitation told me everything. He seemed tired. Liam did most of the talking. "I see. And his safe deposit box?" "Emptied the same day." I thanked Tom and left, my suspicions hardening into certainty. My next stop was the law firm listed on Peter's old will, the one I'd found in his desk drawer, dated 5 years earlier. The attorney, Eleanor Simmons, was a stern woman with silver hair and penetrating eyes that softened when I explained why I was there. "I remember your brother," she said. "Cautious man. Wanted everything arranged perfectly. Did he come see you recently? In the past few months?" She checked her records. "Yes, actually, about 7 weeks ago. He wanted to update his will." "Did he finish the process?" "No." She frowned. "He had an initial consultation, seemed quite determined, but never returned for the signing. We called several times." "What changes was he planning to make?" Eleanor hesitated. "I'm not sure I should—" "Please," I interrupted. "It's important. My son may be involved in something unethical regarding Peter's assets." Her expression shifted from reluctance to concern. "Mr. Harrison expressed worry that someone might be trying to influence his financial decisions. He wanted to create a trust with specific conditions, essentially making it impossible for anyone to access his assets without multiple levels of approval." "He was protecting himself," I whispered. "It seemed so," she agreed. "He mentioned being pressured by family to modernize his investments. Said someone kept bringing financial advisors to his home. By the time I left Eleanor's office, dread had solidified in my stomach like concrete. I drove to Cheeseman Park in a daze, rehearsing what I would say to Howard, what questions I needed answered. He was waiting on our bench, feeding the pigeons again. Today he wore a different coat, still worn but cleaner. He'd trimmed his beard. "You look different," I said, sitting beside him. "Thought I should make an effort," he replied, "given the circumstances." I handed him the notes I'd taken from my morning investigations. "It's all true, isn't it? Everything you told me?" Howard nodded gravely. "I'm sorry, Linda. Tell me about Mark Caldwell. How does he operate? What happens next?" Howard's expression darkened. "Caldwell finds people like your son, smart, ambitious, morally flexible, uses them to do the dirty work, keeps his own hands clean. Once the assets are secured, he cuts them loose. Sometimes they're arrested. Sometimes they just disappear." "Disappear?" My blood ran cold. "Not like that," Howard clarified. "They run, change their names, start over somewhere else, always looking over their shoulders. And you think this is happening to Liam now? It's already begun. My contact at the firm says Caldwell's moved most of the money offshore. The accounts in Liam's name are being emptied. By week's end, your son will have nothing but liability." I closed my eyes, processing. I should go to the police. With what? Your evidence is circumstantial. Caldwell's lawyers would bury it, and Liam would certainly face charges. Then what do I do? Let Caldwell get away with this. Let Peter's money just doesn't disappear. Howard leaned closer. There's another option. Caldwell's weakness is his reputation. He's cultivated an image as Denver's golden boy. Charitable donations, social connections, political aspirations. If that image were threatened, blackmail? I asked, appalled. Leverage, Howard corrected. I have documentation of 6 other cases like Peter's. Names, dates, amounts. Combined with what you've gathered, it's enough to destroy him, if it reached the right people. Like who? I have contacts at the Denver Post, the SEC, the State Attorney General's office. I stared at the pigeons pecking around our feet, considering. And Liam? What happens to him? Howard's voice softened. That depends on you. Turn everything over, he likely faces charges. Hold some back, focus solely on Caldwell. Maybe he walks away, poorer, wiser, but free. Why are you helping me? I asked suddenly. What do you get out of this? Something painful crossed Howard's weathered face. Caldwell ruined my life, my career, my marriage. I've spent years tracking him, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. He paused. But it's not just revenge. Your brother reminded me of someone I couldn't save. This time, maybe I can make it right. As the afternoon light faded, we formulated a plan. Howard would compile all his evidence. I would confront Liam, give him one chance to come clean. Together, we would approach Caldwell with an ultimatum. Be careful, Howard warned as we parted. Caldwell's dangerous when cornered. And Liam, I asked. Should I be afraid of my own son? Howard considered this, his pale eyes thoughtful. I think your son is lost, not evil. But lost men can do desperate things when their world collapses. That night I waited for Liam in the living room, Peter's laptop open before me. I'd found the password, our mother's maiden name, followed by her birthday, and discovered a journal Peter had kept. The most recent entries confirmed everything. His suspicions about Liam and Caldwell, his regret at signing documents while medicated, his plan to fix things before it was too late. The front door opened at 11. Liam's footsteps paused when he saw the light in the living room. Mom, you're still up. I looked at my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after Richard died, the man who had betrayed his uncle for money and ambition. We need to talk, Liam, I said quietly, about Peter, about Mark Caldwell, about what you've done. His face drained of color. In that moment, he looked young again, like the little boy caught stealing cookies, terrified of disappointing me. But this was no childhood transgression, and the path back to redemption would be long and painful for us both. I don't know what you're talking about, Liam said, but his voice cracked, betraying him. He remained standing in the doorway, as if preparing to flee. Sit down, I said. Not a request, a command, the kind I hadn't used since he was a teenager. To my surprise, he obeyed, perching on the edge of the armchair across from me. How did you find out? he asked after a long silence. Does it matter? I countered, studying his face. What matters is what you did, and why. Liam ran a hand through his carefully styled hair, disheveling it. For a moment, he looked like the boy who'd come to me with scraped knees and broken toys, expecting me to fix everything. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he began. Caldwell said it. It was just asset management, helping Uncle Pete modernize his investments. I didn't know he was planning to— Stop lying, I interrupted, my voice sharper than I'd intended. I've read the emails, Liam. I heard Peter's voicemails. I know you forged his signature on transfers after he started questioning things. His head snapped up. How could you possibly know that? Because unlike you, there are people in this world who care about justice more than money. A flush crept up his neck. You don't understand. The opportunity Caldwell offered, to steal from your dying uncle, to betray the man who took you fishing every summer, who came to every football game, who helped pay for your college when your father's insurance wasn't enough. It wasn't like that, Liam protested, standing now, pacing. Uncle Pete was just sitting on all that money, doing nothing with it. He lived like he was poor when he could have been enjoying life. I was going to pay it all back with interest. He never would have noticed. The casual entitlement in his voice stunned me. So you decided his money was better in your hands, that you had the right to take what wasn't yours? Caldwell said— Caldwell used you, I cut in. And now he's setting you up to take the fall. He's already moved most of the money offshore, into accounts you can't access. Liam went very still. That's not possible. We're partners in this. Check the accounts, I suggested. The ones you thought were secure. See for yourself. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. I watched the color drain from his face as he navigated through whatever he was seeing. This is wrong, he muttered. There must be a mistake. It's no mistake. Caldwell's done this before. Finds ambitious young men, uses them to do his dirty work, then discards them when they're no longer useful. Liam sank back into the chair, his phone clutched in a white-knuckled grip. How do you know all this? I met someone, a former investigator who's been tracking Caldwell for years. He showed me everything, the pattern, the previous victims, the way Caldwell operates. And you believe him? Some random guy over your own son? I believe the evidence, I replied evenly. Bank records, emails, your signature on documents Peter couldn't possibly have understood in his condition. Liam's face contorted. So what now? You're going to turn me in? Your own son? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. I'd asked myself the same thing countless times over the past 2 days. That depends on you, I said finally, on whether you're still the boy I raised, somewhere underneath all this. What does that mean? It means you have a choice. Help me make this right, or face the consequences alone. Liam's laugh was bitter. Make it right? How exactly? The money's gone, according to you. Caldwell's setting me up. What am I supposed to do? Tell the truth, I said simply. About everything. We go to Caldwell together, with all the evidence we have, not just about Peter but about his previous schemes. We offer him a deal, return Peter's assets, publicly clear your name, or we take everything to the authorities. He'll never agree to that. He'll deny everything. Maybe. But powerful men like Caldwell care about one thing above all, their reputation. My friend has evidence of 6 other cases like Peter's. Names, dates, amounts. If that information reached the Denver Post or the SEC, understanding dawned in Liam's eyes. Blackmail. Justice, I corrected. For Peter. For all the others. Caldwell has stolen from. Liam was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was small, reminding me of the little boy who would confess to mischief, hoping for forgiveness. I never meant for Uncle Pete to get hurt. When he got sick, Caldwell moved so fast. Suddenly there were documents to sign, accounts to transfer. He said it was standard procedure, protecting assets during medical uncertainty. And you believed him. I wanted to, Liam admitted. The money, the partnership, the prestige, it was everything I'd worked for. And then, his voice broke. And then Uncle Pete started asking questions, wanting to involve his own lawyer. Caldwell said we had to move quickly, that Peter wasn't thinking clearly. So you forged his signature. Liam nodded, unable to meet my eyes. On the final transfers, after he refused to sign them himself, disgust and heartbreak warred within me. This was my son, my flesh and blood, confessing to crimes I couldn't reconcile with the child I'd raised. Did you ever consider what this would do to me? I asked. Finding out my son had stolen from my brother, that the last weeks of Peter's life were filled with confusion and betrayal. Tears filled Liam's eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom, I'm so sorry." "Sorry isn't enough," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Not for this." "What do you want me to do?" he whispered. "Meet with me and Howard tomorrow. Bring all the documentation you have, your account numbers, transfer records, emails from Caldwell, everything. We'll confront him together. And if he refuses, if he denies everything, then we go to the authorities with what we have. You'll face consequences, Liam. I can't protect you from that. But cooperating from the beginning will count for something." He nodded slowly, defeat evident in the slump of his shoulders. "When does this happen?" "Tomorrow afternoon. Howard is arranging the meeting." "Howard? The investigator?" "Yes, he'll be with us." Liam looked skeptical. "And you trust him? Someone you just met?" "More than I trust you right now," I replied, the words cutting us both. Silence stretched between us, filled with decades of memories, birthdays, graduations, quiet nights when it was just the two of us against the world. How had we arrived here, strangers in our own home? "I'll do it," Liam said finally. "Whatever it takes to make this right, I promise." I wanted to believe him, God, how I wanted to, but the evidence of his betrayal was too fresh, the wound too deep. "Get some sleep," I said, closing Peter's laptop. "Tomorrow will be difficult for all of us." After Liam went upstairs, I texted Howard. He's agreed to help. "Meeting still on for tomorrow?" His reply came moments later. "Yes, Caldwell's office, 3 p.m. Bring everything you have. And Linda, be prepared for anything. Men like Caldwell don't surrender easily." I sat in the darkened living room long after I should have gone to bed, remembering Peter's voice on that final voicemail. "Tell Liam I forgive him, but I hope he doesn't forget what family means." Forgiveness. Could I find it within myself, as Peter had, or was? Some betrayal too profound to move beyond? Tomorrow would bring answers one way or another, but tonight I mourned for my brother, for the son I thought I knew, and for the simple life I'd lost the moment Howard placed that envelope in my hands. The next morning dawned bright and cold, a crisp September day that felt like a mockery of the darkness swirling inside me. I'd barely slept, my mind racing through possibilities, consequences, scenarios, each worse than the last. I dressed carefully, choosing a navy suit I rarely wore. Something about its structured shoulders and precise lines made me feel armored, protected. I would need that strength today. Liam was already gone when I came downstairs, a note on the counter explaining he'd left early to gather documents. I wasn't sure whether to be relieved or worried by his absence. Part of me feared he might run, disappearing before facing the consequences of his actions. Another part, the mother who still loved him despite everything, hoped he was truly committed to making amends. Howard called at 11, confirming our meeting with Caldwell at 3. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" he asked, his gravelly voice concerned. "I have to be," I replied, "for Peter's sake. And Liam, is he cooperating?" "He says he is. He left early to collect evidence." Howard was quiet for a moment. "Linda, I need to tell you something. Something I should have mentioned earlier." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "Caldwell knows about me, about my investigation. He's had me followed before, threatened me. That's why I was living the way I was when you met me. I had to disappear, become invisible." "Are you saying this meeting is dangerous?" "I'm saying Caldwell plays for keeps. He's politically connected, has friends in law enforcement. If this goes sideways, then we need to be prepared," I finished for him. "I'm not backing down, Howard. Peter deserves justice." "I'll pick you up at 2, he said, after a pause. "We'll go together." When Howard arrived, I barely recognized him. Gone was the disheveled homeless man from the park. In his place stood a distinguished gentleman in a well-worn but impeccable suit, his white beard neatly trimmed, his blue eyes sharp and alert. Even his posture had changed, straighter, more commanding. "You clean up well," I said, attempting a smile. "Didn't always look like a vagrant," he replied with a slight grin. "Ready?" I nodded, clutching my handbag containing all the evidence I'd gathered. Liam's meeting us there. Howard's car was as surprising as his transformation, an older model Mercedes, meticulously maintained. As we drove through Denver toward the gleaming skyscrapers of the financial district, he filled me in on what to expect. Caldwell will deny everything. He'll be charming, dismissive, might even threaten legal action for defamation. Don't let him rattle you. We have evidence, and his reputation means everything to him. And if he refuses to cooperate? Howard's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Then we have decisions to make about how far we're willing to go. Coldwell Financial occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. The lobby was all marble and hushed efficiency, with security guards who checked IDs and called upstairs before allowing visitors to the elevator bank. "We have an appointment with Mark Caldwell," Howard said confidently. "Howard Blackwell and Linda Harrison." The guard checked his computer. "Yes, Mr. Caldwell is expecting you. 42nd floor." As the elevator rose, my stomach knotted with tension. "Did you see Liam's name on that list?" I whispered. Howard shook his head. "Could mean anything. Stay focused." The elevator doors opened directly into a reception area decorated in chrome and leather, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the mountains beyond the city. A sleek, polished receptionist greeted us with a practiced smile. "Mr. Caldwell will see you now," she said, leading us down a hallway lined with expensive art. Mark Caldwell's office was exactly what I'd expected. Spacious, imposing, designed to intimidate. The man himself rose from behind an enormous desk as we entered, his silver hair perfectly styled, his tailored suit probably costing more than my monthly salary. "Miss Harrison, Mr. Blackwell," he said, his voice smooth as expensive whiskey. "Please have a seat. Can I offer you anything? Coffee, water?" "We're fine," Howard replied tersely. Caldwell smiled, revealing perfect teeth. "I understand you have some concerns you'd like to discuss." His eyes flicked to me. "About your brother's estate, is it?" "About your theft of my brother's estate," I corrected, my voice steadier than I felt. "And about your manipulation of my son." His expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Those are serious accusations, Ms. Harrison. I hope you have something to substantiate them." "We do," Howard said, placing a folder on Caldwell's desk. "Bank transfers, emails, forged documents, a comprehensive record of how you and Liam Harrison systematically drained Peter Harrison's accounts after obtaining power of attorney under suspicious circumstances." Caldwell didn't touch the folder. "And you are what exactly? Not a lawyer, certainly not a detective anymore. Not after that unfortunate business with the fabricated evidence. Isn't that right, Mr. Blackwell?" I glanced at Howard, whose jaw had tightened. "Ancient history," Howard replied, "and irrelevant to the current situation." Caldwell leaned back in his chair. "On the contrary, it speaks directly to credibility." He turned to me. "Did your new friend tell you why his investigative license was revoked? Why his testimony wouldn't hold up in any court?" "We're not here to discuss Howard's past," I interjected. "We're here about Peter's money, about what you and Liam did." "Speaking of Liam," Caldwell said, smoothly, "I expected him to join us. After all, he's quite central to these allegations." The way he said it sent a chill through me. "He's meeting us here." "Is he?" Caldwell glanced at his watch. "Interesting, because I received a very distressing email from him this morning, expressing concern about his mother's mental health following her brother's death. Apparently, you've been making some troubling accusations, Ms. Harrison, connecting with unsavory characters." His eyes flicked to Howard, becoming paranoid. My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" Caldwell tapped his computer screen. "Would you like me to read it to you? It's quite concerning, really. He's worried you might need professional help." "You're lying," I said, but doubt crept in. "Where was Liam? Why? Wasn't he here?" "Am I?" Caldwell turned the screen toward me. There it was, an email from Liam's account, detailing concerns about my declining mental state and paranoid delusions about Peter's finances. "This is fabricated," Howard said firmly. "You're trying to gaslight her." Caldwell smiled thinly. "Mr. Blackwell, your history of mental instability is well documented. Perhaps you two found each other at a vulnerable moment and reinforced each other's alternative perceptions of reality." I stood, hands shaking with rage. "My brother had investments worth over $2 million, property in Boulder. All of it disappeared after you and my son manipulated him into signing power of attorney while he was heavily medicated. We have the evidence right there." I pointed to the folder. "Open it. Ms. Harrison, your brother died with less than $20,000 to his name. The house he lived in was mortgaged to the hilt. There was no property in Boulder, no investment portfolio. I've never managed any accounts for Peter Harrison. You're lying, I repeated, but my voice wavered. I understand grief can distort perception, Caldwell continued, his tone compassionate but condescending. When we lose someone, we often create narratives to make sense of the loss. Sometimes we need someone to blame. Howard placed a hand on my arm. This is getting us nowhere. We should go. A wise decision, Caldwell agreed. And Ms. Harrison, for what it's worth, I'm sorry about your brother. Loss is never easy. As we turned to leave, the office door opened. Liam stood there, his face pale, his eyes not meeting mine. "Mom," he said quietly, "we need to talk." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet as I stared at my son. Everything about him, his stance, his expression, the way he hovered near Caldwell's side of the room rather than mine, told me everything I needed to know. "You chose him," I said, the words barely audible. Liam finally met my gaze, and I was shocked by the coldness there. "There was nothing to choose, Mom. You've been acting irrationally since Uncle Pete died, connecting with—" He glanced at Howard. "People who are feeding your delusions." "Delusions?" I repeated, anger rising through my shock. "I heard Peter's voicemails, Liam. I saw the documents. I know what you did." "What voicemails?" Liam asked, his brow furrowed in what appeared to be genuine confusion. "Uncle Pete's phone was disconnected weeks before he died. The hospice recommended it, said it was too stressful for him to manage calls." I turned to Howard, who looked as bewildered as I felt. "That's not possible. I was at Peter's house yesterday. I heard messages he left me, warnings about Liam and Caldwell." "Mom," Liam said gently, stepping toward me, "you haven't been to Uncle Pete's house since the funeral. We went together to collect some personal items, remember? The rest is being handled by the estate attorney." "No," I shook my head vehemently. "I was there yesterday. I found investment statements, property deeds." "Peter Harrison owned no property besides his primary residence," Caldwell interjected smoothly. "His estate is quite modest." Liam showed me the preliminary inventory from the attorney. My mind raced. Was I losing my grip on reality? No, I had copied documents, taken photos. I reached for my phone, but my handbag felt lighter than before. "Looking for this?" Liam held up my phone. "You left it on the kitchen counter this morning. I brought it for you." But I hadn't. I never went anywhere without my phone. Something was very wrong. "Howard," I said, turning to the one person I still trusted, "tell them about the evidence, the emails, the transfers." Howard looked uncomfortable. "Linda, perhaps we should continue this conversation elsewhere." "Yes," Caldwell agreed. "I think that would be best. Liam has arranged for you to speak with someone who can help, Linda, a grief counselor with expertise in situations like yours." "I don't need a grief counselor," I snapped. "I need my son to tell the truth." Liam approached me cautiously as if I might shatter. "Mom, you haven't been yourself. You've been having episodes, periods where you seem confused about what's real. Remember last week when you were convinced Dad had called the house? Dad's been gone for 8 years. I stared at him, genuinely bewildered. "I never said anything about your father calling." "See?" Liam looked at Caldwell, then back to me. "You don't even remember. The doctor says that's part of the pattern." "What doctor?" I demanded. "I haven't seen any doctor." Howard stepped between us. "That's enough. Linda, we're leaving now." He took my elbow firmly. "Mr. Blackwell," Caldwell said, his voice hardening, "I should remind you that interfering with a family matter, particularly one involving mental health concerns, could be problematic for someone with your history." "Are you threatening me?" Howard asked quietly. "Simply stating facts," Caldwell replied. "Liam has legitimate concerns about his mother's well-being. As her only family, he has certain legal rights regarding her care." A chill ran through me. They were trying to make me sound crazy, to discredit anything I might say about Peter's assets. "I'm perfectly sane," I stated firmly, "and I'm leaving now." "Mom, please," Liam pleaded, "just talk to the doctor, for me." I looked at my son, this stranger wearing Liam's face, and felt something break inside me. "You betrayed Peter," I said softly, "and now you're betraying me. I don't know you anymore." Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out, Howard close behind me. Neither Liam nor Caldwell tried to stop us as we took the elevator down to the lobby in silence. Once we were safely in Howard's car, he turned to me. "Linda, something isn't right. The documents we had, they should have been conclusive. Caldwell shouldn't have been able to dismiss them so easily. They're Gaslighting me, I said, my voice shaking. Trying to make me doubt my own sanity. But I know what I saw, Howard. I know what I heard. Howard nodded grimly. We need to go back to Peter's house. Now. Before they can cover their tracks further. As we drove, I tried calling Peter's landline from Howard's phone. The automated message confirmed what Liam had said. The number you have dialed has been disconnected. That's impossible, I whispered. I was just there yesterday. The phone was working. I listened to messages. Howard's expression was grave. They're moving faster than I anticipated, erasing evidence. When we arrived at Peter's house, another shock awaited us. A for sale sign stood in the front yard, and when I tried my key in the lock, it no longer worked. What the hell? I muttered, trying again. The door opened suddenly, revealing a middle-aged woman in paint-splattered overalls. Can I help you? She asked. This is my brother's house, I explained. Peter Harrison. Who are you? The woman looked confused. I'm the contractor preparing the property for sale. The owner passed away and the estate authorized renovations before listing. I'm his sister. I said. I was here yesterday. She shook her head. That's not possible. I've been here all week. The place was empty when I started, and I'm the only one with keys besides the real estate agent. Howard stepped forward. May we come in? Just for a moment. It would mean a lot to Ms. Harrison to see her brother's home one last time. The woman hesitated, then nodded sympathetically. I suppose that would be all right, but the place is pretty torn up. We've already removed most of the old fixtures. She wasn't exaggerating. Inside, Peter's home was unrecognizable. Walls had been stripped, flooring torn up, cabinets removed. No trace remained of the cozy, lived-in space I'd visited just a day before. The office, I whispered to Howard. It was down the hall. We found what had been Peter's. Office? Now just an empty room with exposed drywall and electrical outlets. No desk, no file cabinets, no laptop, nothing. This is impossible, I said, panic rising in my throat. Everything was here yesterday. The investment statements, the voicemails, everything. The contractor watched us with growing concern. The estate clearance company removed all personal belongings last week, said the family had already taken what they wanted. Howard thanked her, and we left before my obvious distress could raise more questions. Back in the car, I finally broke down, sobs tearing through me. They've erased everything, I gasped between tears. How is this possible? Am I losing my mind, Howard? He took my hand firmly. No, you're not crazy, Linda. This is what Caldwell does. He manipulates reality, creates doubt, makes victims question themselves. It's how he's escaped consequences for so long. But how? How could they disconnect a phone, clear out a house, change locks, all in less than a day? Howard started the car. Money, power, connections. And they've probably been planning this for longer than we realize, creating a backup strategy in case someone started asking questions. What do we do now? Without evidence, we still have the copies you made, right? The photos on your phone. I felt sick. My phone. Liam has it. And the copies were in my handbag, which feels lighter now. They must have taken them while we were in Caldwell's office. Howard fell silent, his expression grim. Finally, he said, there's one more place we can try, one last shot at finding proof. Where? Peter's bank. You said your friend Tom works there. If Peter really did transfer his money recently, there should be records. Records Caldwell can't easily erase. As we drove to the bank, I tried to process what was happening. My son had not only betrayed his uncle, but was now actively working to undermine my sanity, to discredit me before I could expose their scheme. The depth of the betrayal was almost incomprehensible. Howard, I asked quietly, how does someone become like Caldwell? How does my son turn into someone who could do this? Howard kept his eyes on the road. Gradually. First small compromises that seem justified, then bigger ones that become necessary to protect the earlier choices. Eventually, the line between right and wrong blurs completely. And Liam, can he come back from this? Howard's silence was my answer. The bank stood like a fortress against the afternoon sky, its stone exterior promising security and permanence in a world that suddenly felt treacherous beneath my feet. Tom greeted us in the lobby, his earlier friendliness replaced by visible discomfort. Linda, he said, not quite meeting my eyes, I wasn't expecting you back so soon. I need your help, Tom, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the desperation clawing at my throat. Something's wrong. All the evidence of Peter's finances is disappearing. He glanced around nervously. Let's talk in my office. As we followed him through the bank, I noticed Howard scanning our surroundings with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to looking for threats. Tom's office was small but private, with blinds that he quickly closed after we entered. I got a call this morning, he said without preamble, from Mark Caldwell. My heart sank. What did he want? He said you might come back, that you've been having difficulties since Peter's death. He mentioned delusions about Peter's finances. And you believed him? I asked, incredulous. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Linda, I've known you since high school, but Caldwell is on our board of directors, and he had documentation, medical assessments, suggesting you're experiencing grief-induced psychosis. That's absurd. I haven't seen any doctor. He also had a statement from Liam confirming your episodes. Tom looked genuinely conflicted. I want to help you, but my hands are tied. Legally, I can't discuss Peter's accounts with you if there's any question about your capacity to manage financial information. Howard leaned forward. Tom, is there anything you can tell us? Anything at all that might help clarify what's happening? Tom hesitated, then sighed heavily. Look, I shouldn't be saying this, but something did seem off about those transfers. Peter was always so careful with his money, so methodical. Then suddenly he's moving everything at once, setting up complicated transfers through multiple accounts. It didn't fit his pattern. Did you question it? I asked. I tried, but Liam had the power of attorney document, all perfectly legal. And Peter was there, though he seemed subdued. When I asked if he was sure about the transfers, he just nodded. Liam did all the talking. This confirmation that Peter had indeed had substantial assets, that they had been transferred, felt like oxygen after nearly drowning. I wasn't crazy. It had happened. Do you have any record of where the money went? Howard asked. Tom shook his head. The initial transfers went to an investment firm, Meridian Capital. After that, I don't know. Caldwell's shell company, Howard muttered. They must have moved the money again immediately. Tom looked at his watch nervously. I need to ask you both to leave now. I've said more than I should, and if Caldwell found out— I understand, I said, reaching across the desk to squeeze his hand. Thank you for telling me the truth. It means more than you know. Outside, the afternoon had turned cloudy, the mountains disappearing behind a wall of approaching storm clouds. It matched my mood perfectly, dark, ominous, yet somehow clarifying. Now what? I asked Howard, as we returned to his car. We know it happened, but we still have no proof. Howard was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming against the steering wheel. There's one more person who might help us. Someone inside Caldwell's organization, the contact who's been feeding me information. Can we trust them? We don't have much choice, he admitted. But yes, I believe we can. She has her own reasons for wanting Caldwell exposed. He drove us to a small cafe in a quiet neighborhood away from downtown. Inside, a young woman with a severe bob and intelligent eyes waited at a corner table. She tensed visibly when she saw Howard, but relaxed slightly as we approached. This is Vanessa, Howard said as we sat down. She works in Caldwell's accounting department. You're taking a huge risk meeting us, I said, studying her nervous demeanor. Caldwell destroyed my father, she replied simply. He deserves what's coming to him. What can you tell us? Howard asked. They've erased every trace of evidence, Linda. Collected. Vanessa glanced around, then pulled out a flash drive. I've been documenting Caldwell's operations for over a year, copying files, recording conversations when possible. I was building a case to take to the authorities. Why haven't you? I asked. Because Caldwell has people everywhere, police, regulators, even judges. I needed to be absolutely certain my evidence was bulletproof. She slid the drive across the table. This includes records of your brother's assets being moved through Meridian, then dispersed to offshore accounts. It's not everything, but it's a start. Howard pocketed the drive. What about Linda's son, Liam Harrison? How deeply is he involved? Vanessa's expression softened with sympathy as she looked at me. He was Caldwell's protégé, ambitious, eager to— Please. Caldwell took him under his wing about 2 years ago, grooming him for exactly this kind of operation. And now, I pressed, now he's being isolated. Caldwell's cutting him out, removing his access to accounts, building a paper trail that pins everything on him. Yesterday, they had him sign backdated documents taking full responsibility for all client acquisitions and financial strategies. My stomach twisted. Despite everything, Liam was still my son. He doesn't realize what's happening, does he? I don't think so, Vanessa confirmed. He still believes he's being promoted, but in reality, Caldwell's preparing him as the fall guy. When the authorities eventually catch wind of this, which they will, all roads will lead to Liam, not Caldwell. I thought of Peter's last message. Tell Liam I forgive him, but I hope he doesn't forget what family means. Even in his final days, my brother had understood something I was only now beginning to grasp, that Liam's betrayal would ultimately destroy him, not us. What's our next move? I asked, looking between Howard and Vanessa. We need more, Howard said firmly. Vanessa's evidence helps, but Caldwell could still claim she fabricated it. We need something irrefutable. Like what? I asked. Like Caldwell's own admission, Howard replied. Recorded, documented, witnessed. He'd never confess, Vanessa objected. He's too careful. Everyone has a weakness, Howard insisted. Caldwell's is his pride, his certainty that he's smarter than everyone else. If we could use that against him. A plan began to form in my mind. Risky, potentially dangerous, but possibly our only option. What if I played into their narrative, let Caldwell and Liam believe they've won, that I'm accepting their version of reality? Howard caught on immediately. Get them to let their guard down. Exactly. If they think I'm no longer a threat, they might be less careful, especially if I hint that I'm willing to sign something, a statement perhaps, confirming my confusion about Peter's finances. They'd want that, Vanessa agreed. Legal protection against any future claims you might make. And when they meet with me to finalize it, I continued. We record everything, Howard finished. Catch them in their own web. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope, not just for justice for Peter, but possibly even for Liam. If we could expose Caldwell, maybe my son would see the truth before it was too late. As if reading my thoughts, Howard placed his hand over mine. Linda, I need to be clear about something. Even if we succeed, even if we expose Caldwell and recover Peter's assets, Liam has made his choices. You need to be prepared for the possibility that he won't come back from this. The truth of his words settled over me like a heavy cloak. I thought of the little boy who had once curled against me during thunderstorms, seeking protection from the world's chaos. Somewhere along the way, I had failed him, or perhaps he had failed himself. Either way, the distance between us now seemed unbridgeable. I understand, I said quietly, but I have to try. For Peter. For myself. And yes, even for Liam, whether he wants my help or not. As the storm clouds finally broke overhead, sending sheets of rain against the cafe windows, we finalized our plan. Tomorrow would bring either justice or final defeat. Either way, there would be no more running, no more doubt. Tomorrow, the truth would finally emerge. Morning arrived with unsettling clarity, sunlight streaming. Through my bedroom window, birds singing in the oak tree outside as if nothing in the world had changed. I dressed simply in a beige sweater and slacks, nothing that would suggest confrontation or conflict. Today, I needed to appear defeated, resigned, vulnerable. Liam called just after 9, his voice carefully modulated to express concern rather than triumph. Mom, how are you feeling today? Tired, I replied, injecting weariness into my tone. Confused. I've been so worried. After you left Caldwell's office yesterday, I've been thinking about what you and Mr. Caldwell said, I interrupted. About my confusion. Maybe you're right. Nothing makes sense anymore. The relief in his voice was palpable. That's good, Mom. That's really good. The first step is recognizing there might be a problem. I'd like to talk to you both, to apologize for my accusations, maybe sign something saying I was mistaken about Peter's finances. Of course, Liam said quickly, too quickly. Mr. Caldwell suggested something similar. For legal purposes, you understand, to protect everyone. Could we meet this afternoon at the house? I'd feel more comfortable there. Absolutely. Would 3 o'clock work? I'll bring the papers and Mr. Caldwell can witness everything. Perfect, I agreed, marveling at how easily they had taken the bait. Howard arrived an hour before the scheduled meeting, bringing with him recording equipment small enough to hide throughout my living room. Vanessa had provided us with the specific legal language Caldwell was likely to use, terms that would implicate him if captured on record. Remember, Howard cautioned as we positioned the final microphone beneath a stack of magazines, don't push too hard. Let them lead the conversation. If Caldwell suspects anything, he'll shut down immediately. I understand, I assured him. though my heart was pounding. Where will you be? Parked down the street. The recording devices transmit to my laptop. If anything goes wrong, anything at all, I'll call the police immediately. At precisely 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Howard slipped out the back door as I moved to answer it, pausing to check my reflection in the hallway mirror. I looked exactly as I needed to, exhausted, uncertain, diminished. Liam and Caldwell stood on my porch, both impeccably dressed, both wearing expressions of practiced concern. I invited them in, offered them coffee, played the part of a fragile woman coming to terms with her own mental frailty. "I appreciate you both coming," I said, settling into an armchair across from them. "This has been difficult to accept. Grief affects us all differently," Caldwell offered smoothly. "There's no shame in seeking help." Liam nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. "We only want what's best for you, Mom." "I know," I said softly. "That's why I'm ready to sign whatever you need me to acknowledge that my beliefs about Peter's finances were mistaken." Caldwell removed a document from his briefcase, sliding it across the coffee table toward me. "This is simply a statement confirming that you no longer believe Peter Harrison possessed substantial assets beyond his known accounts, and that you withdraw any accusations against myself or Liam regarding financial impropriety." I pretended to read it carefully, though Howard and I had already anticipated exactly what it would say. "This seems straightforward, but before I sign, I need to understand something. If Peter didn't have these investments I imagined, why were you meeting with him at all, Mr. Caldwell? Liam mentioned you visited him in the hospital." A flicker of annoyance crossed Caldwell's face, quickly masked. "A courtesy visit only. As Liam's mentor, I make an effort to know his family." "Of course," I nodded. "And the power of attorney. Was that your idea or Liam's?" Liam shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, we've been over this. Uncle Pete signed that willingly, to help manage his bills while he was sick." "Right, yes, I remember now." I picked up a pen, hovering it over the document. "One last thing. The house being renovated and listed for sale, that happened very quickly. The estate needs to be settled," Caldwell interjected smoothly. "Standard procedure." "Through Meridian Capital?" I asked innocently. I noticed their sign on the property. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Caldwell's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Where did you hear that name?" "Oh, did I get it wrong? I thought that was the company handling Peter's estate." I feigned confusion. "My memory these days." "Meridian is a subsidiary of Caldwell Financial," he said carefully. "They handle certain real estate transactions." "And financial transfers?" I pressed, watching his expression harden. "Like the ones from Peter's accounts before he died?" Liam stood abruptly. "Mom, you're doing it again. This is exactly what the doctor warned about. These delusional connections." "What doctor, Liam?" I asked, dropping all pretense of confusion. "There is no doctor, there are no delusions, there's only the truth, that you and Mr. Caldwell stole over $2 million from my dying brother." Caldwell's mask of concern vanished, replaced by cold calculation. "Miss Harrison, I came here as a courtesy, but I see that was a mistake. Your condition is clearly more serious than Liam indicated." "My condition is perfect clarity," I replied, rising to face him. "Clarity supported by bank records, transfer documents, and testimony from your own accounting department." Something dangerous flashed in Caldwell's eyes. "Unfounded accusations from a grieving, unstable woman won't hold up anywhere, Miss Harrison. Now, I suggest you sign the document and end this unfortunate episode before it goes any further." "Or what?" I challenged. "You'll have me committed, discredited, erased like all the evidence of your crimes." Liam stepped between us, his face pale. "Mom, please, you're making this worse. Just sign the papers." I looked at my son, truly looked at him, and saw fear behind his eyes. Not concern for me, but terror for himself. "He's setting you up, Liam. You do understand that, don't you? When this all comes crashing down, you'll be the one taking the fall." Caldwell's laugh was cold. "That's absurd. Liam is my protege." "Your scapegoat," I corrected. "Every document points to him, not you. Every transfer bears his signature. When the authorities eventually investigate, and they will, all evidence will lead to Liam Harrison, ambitious young executive who exploited his uncle's illness for financial gain." Doubt flickered across Liam's face. He turned to Caldwell. "That's not true. Tell her that's not true." Caldwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course it's not true. Your mother is unwell." Then explain the backdated documents you had me sign yesterday, Liam pressed. The ones accepting responsibility for all client acquisitions. Standard legal protection, Caldwell replied smoothly. Nothing to worry about. And the offshore accounts, I asked. The ones you've been moving Peter's money into, accounts Liam can't access. This is preposterous, Caldwell snapped, but I could see Liam's certainty wavering. It's all recorded, Mark, I said quietly. This entire conversation, every admission, every lie, combined with the evidence we already have, it's more than enough. As if on cue, the front door opened and Howard walked in, followed by two people I didn't recognize, a man and woman in business attire, their expressions grim. Mark Caldwell, the woman said, displaying a badge. I'm Special Agent Rivera with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to ask you some questions about Meridian Capital and several suspicious transactions flagged by FinCEN. The color drained from Caldwell's face. For the first time, his composure cracked completely. This is a setup, he snarled, looking between Howard and me. Whatever they've told you is fabricated. We have subpoenaed records from 7 different financial institutions, Agent Rivera continued calmly, and testimony from 3 of your former associates. This interview is a courtesy before we execute our search warrants. As the agents escorted Caldwell from my home, his mask of civility completely abandoned, I turned to Liam. He stood, frozen, watching his mentor's downfall with the shocked expression of someone seeing reality clearly for the first time. What happens to me now? He asked quietly. That depends, I replied, on what you do next. Cooperate fully, return what's left of Peter's money, accept responsibility for your actions, and there might be a path forward. Tears filled his eyes. Real tears, not the calculated emotion he'd displayed earlier. I'm sorry, Mum, I never meant for it to go this far. Caldwell made it sound so simple at first, just helping Uncle Pete optimize his assets. Then one step led to another, and suddenly there was no way back. There's always a way back, I said, thinking of Peter's final message. It just might not be the easy way. In the days that followed, justice began its slow, inevitable progress. Caldwell was arrested, his empire crumbling as investigators uncovered decades of fraud. Liam, true to his word, cooperated completely, accepting a plea deal that included restitution, community service, and probation rather than prison time. Peter's assets were mostly recovered, enough to establish the scholarship fund he had always talked about creating, helping underprivileged students pursue education without financial burden. Howard and I met occasionally at our bench in Cheeseman Park, feeding pigeons and watching the seasons change. His investigation business reopened, his reputation restored by his role in bringing down one of Denver's most sophisticated financial criminals. As for Liam and me, the path to reconciliation was neither straight nor easy. Trust, once shattered, does not mend without scars. But we began the process, with counseling, with honest conversations, with the painful acknowledgement of harm done and amends to be made. 1 year after Peter's death, I visited his grave alone, placing fresh flowers against the simple headstone. You were right to forgive him, I said quietly to the brother who'd always seen the best in others. He's finding his way back slowly, and I'm finding my way forward. As I turned to leave, I noticed an elderly man watching from a respectful distance. Not Howard, but someone with the same weathered dignity. He nodded to me in silent acknowledgement before continuing on his way. In that moment, I understood what Peter had always known, that sometimes the truth comes to us in unexpected packages. A letter handed to us by a stranger, a voice from beyond speaking through remembered words, a moment of clarity when we least expect it. And when it does, we have a choice, to bury it or to rise with it. I chose to rise.